Daniel Sports Central, we go for a college football game preview and prediction on the Week 9 matchup between the Duke Blue Devils and the Louisville Cardinals. Two of your top contenders in the ACC this season. Both teams trying to bounce back from tough losses. We'll be going for a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today. Let's get started with their team trends. Duke lost to Florida State 20-38 last week, which was obviously a score that looks pretty ugly, but Duke actually hung in there for a while. They were competitive in the first half, but in the second half, Florida State pulled away and turned out to be the better team. But in the end, still a good fight out of Duke for a while, and this team is 5-2 on the season, ranked 20th in the country, and I still believe this team should be top 20. Just based on the talent and the experience of this team, they still have got a high ceiling. But the thing is, though, as well, is that Riley Leonard has to be healthy if this team wants to be a contender in the conference. I mean, we have seen the potential of this team. Riley Leonard is a great quarterback, but dealing with injuries has definitely been an issue this season for him. But for Louisville on the other side, I mean, you consider the way this team beat Notre Dame a few weeks ago, 33-20 at home, just a massive win for the Cardinals. Really a breakthrough win for this team, getting to 6-0 and a huge win over a national contender at the time. But then you lose to Pitt the next week, 21-38 on the road. Pitt, one of the worst teams in the ACC this season. Just a very disappointing loss for Louisville. And I mean, at this point, Louisville is still 6-1. They're still very much in a position where they can get to the ACC title game and even to the New Year's Six. But obviously, that's just a loss you can't take if you're Louisville. So for both teams in their situations, both teams have one loss in conference. We could easily, I think you got Florida State pretty much a lock for the ACC title game at this point. And then it's either Louisville, Duke, or North Carolina for the other spot. And honestly, I feel like this is an elimination game in a way for ACC contention. Games will be on Saturday the 28th in Louisville. Kickoff is 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Spread's going with Louisville by 4.5. So Cardinals are favored by not too much in this matchup as you would expect. Duke is a competitive team that shouldn't be underestimated, but it makes sense for Louisville to be favored, especially with them being at home. Over-under is 46.5. FBI is also going on Louisville's side, 53%. Your series history, Louisville leads at 3-0. We've only seen these two teams play each other 3 times in their histories, which might surprise you. The 3 matchups were in 02, 16, and 2021. That was the last game these two teams played was in 2021, and Louisville's won all 3. So for Duke, this is an opportunity to finally get a win on the board against the Cardinals. Stat comparison, Duke is 60th in points per game, 7th in points allowed. This is a strong team defensively. With the exception of the Florida State game, you could say this is one of the best defenses in the country, which I feel like when you think of Duke, you don't typically think of their defense, but the defense has been the strong suit of this team so far this season. But when Riley Leonard's healthy, though, that just completes everything, and that's why this team has been able to be successful this season, is when Riley Leonard is healthy and able to play well. But this team is 119th in passers game, 22nd in rush yards. This is one of the stronger rushing teams in the country. Riley Leonard he's a good passer, but he's especially good being a dual threat quarterback. And you look at Louisville on the other side, 40th in points per game, 47th in points allowed. This is a strong passing team on the other side. You consider Jack Plummer. He throws, I mean, if you can limit the turnovers that he commits, I feel like Jack Plummer could be a pretty good quarterback. He's already passed for nearly 2,000 yards on the season, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. And defensively, this team is really good against the run. So from that aspect, this team matches up pretty well against Duke. Your recent matchups, Duke lost to Florida State, beat NC State 24-3. That was one of the more impressive wins of the season. For Duke, for sure. You really saw this defense shine in that one. Lost to Notre Dame 14-21, beat UConn 41-7, also beat Northwestern 38-14. As for Louisville, lost to Pitt 21-38. Otherwise, a really strong season so far. Beat Notre Dame, beat NC State, beat Boston College 56-28. So you can kind of see the inconsistency there. A dominant win over Boston College, scoring 56 on them and allowing 28. Meanwhile, the next week, beat NC State 13-10 in a low-scoring defensive battle, but the last couple of games has been somewhere in the middle. Also beat Indiana 21-14 back in mid-September. Your key points, Duke 5-2. This is a talented team that's got experience. I mean, last season, Duke really surprised a lot of people, and this season, many expected them to be good, but this team still remains an ACC contenders. We look forward to Week 9. That definitely says something. And Riley Leonard, he's a true threat whenever he's 100%. I mean, he wasn't terribly impressive against Florida State. You look at his stats. I mean, he was 7 for 16, passed 69 yards and a pick. So nothing too impressive out of him. And then, of course, Henry Bellin came in. But Riley Leonard, he's just got to get healthy, and that's going to be a huge thing for Duke moving forward if this team wants to remain a top team in the ACC. But I mean, this is a critical game for both teams here, I feel like. I mean, North Carolina, after losing to Virginia, definitely isn't quite in that number 2 position. It's really up for grabs between Louisville, North Carolina, and Duke at this point. So, I mean, to remain a one-loss team in the ACC, that's a critical thing, I think, moving forward as we look to November in the final month of conference action. But for Louisville, I mean, after beating the Irish, this team losing to Pitt was definitely one of the bigger surprises of the season that we've seen, and you never know with college football. I mean, that just totally proves that, because Pitt, I mean, they're a decent team. I feel like they're not quite as bad as their record shows. They're currently 2-5 overall. They were 1-4 heading into that matchup against Louisville, so they were probably a bit underestimated heading into that matchup. But either way, just a brutal loss for the Cardinals. And I feel like for both teams, this really applies for both teams. This is a very revealing game for both teams as well. I mean, you got two teams that are kind of fringe ACC contenders. The winner of this game is in a pretty good spot in the ACC. The loser is kind of taken out of contention, but they're still in contention for a halfway decent bowl game. So I'd say this is definitely a turning point in this season for both teams as we look forward to November, which is looming. But with that, let's get the prediction here for Duke and Louisville coming up here in week 9 of action. And I do want to go with the Cardinals here. 24-20 is my predicted final score. I think we see more of a moderate to a lower scoring matchup here. Duke's defense is strong enough, and I feel like they show up to the point where they can keep it close. But with Riley Leonard not 100%, it's just going to be tough for this Duke offense to score a lot, even though Louisville has shown that they can be a bit vulnerable defensively at times. But I do think Louisville finds a way. They get the win 24-20. I also think them being at home does help them. Plus, the matchup is pretty good for the Cardinals, I would say, as opposed to Duke. But I'd say 55% towards Louisville. I'm also taking the under for this one, barely, and Duke to barely cover the spread. It's currently a Louisville 4.5 points, so that could change in the next couple of days. But as of now, I do want to take Duke to cover the spread and the under as well, and Louisville gets the win 24-20. But with that, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup, and stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll catch you on the next one.